Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sombi, for this very enlightening talk. It's actually very timely. We did not hesitate to cooperate with ASEAN in providing the venue and doing this because of the new government's rather surprising twists and turns. With respect to the South China Sea, as you know, the Philippines, as a small power, is always looking to support friends, larger friends, especially in its relations vis-a-vis China. And I think that, although as you noted, Russia has been way back in the background and practically invisible in terms of Philippine foreign relations. And Russia's interest in the South China Sea is a bit of a not that well articulated as far as the Philippines is concerned, in a way that will help the Philippines deal with Russia on this issue. I think that it would be helpful for us to know if Russia would be willing to play this kind of role as a kind of intermediary or intercessionist as well on behalf of the Philippines, because we continue to have these disputes. Exactly 47 minutes ago when I was sitting down there, for example, I found out the response to the current administration's announced initiative to establish a marine protected area on Scarborough Shoal. And the response is that fishermen have just returned, fishermen in Zambales have just returned from Scarborough Shoal, and they reported that 15 Chinese vessels are now hauling giant clams out of the lagoon. So you see the tremendous problem we have, that despite everything, despite all the atmospherics, actions still speak louder than words as far as I'm concerned. So would Russia be willing to play that kind of a role, I guess? Because even as we move away from an American-led world order, and the president said he wants to join a new China-Russian world order, no matter how true that may be, I think that for the Philippines, it's still the kind of support we need is still there, regardless of how leaders perceive the world. So would you be able to sort of give us an idea of if that would be plausible?
Well, let me just try to clarify the Russian position on South China Sea, which was articulated so far. For instance, if you look at the communiques of talks between Russian Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of Vietnam, our President and the President of Vietnam for the last several years, and these contacts are regular. There always used to be a passage in which it was indicated that Russia and Vietnam support peaceful non-violent solution to territorial disputes in the South China Sea based on international law and UNCLOS. Then I think in discussions with the Chinese leadership, there was one major theme which was Russian and China's agreement that we are not supporting internationalization of these issues. In other words, they should be solved by those who are directly involved in territorial disputes. Finally, as far as the decision of the Hague Tribunal is concerned, I think President Putin said that it was no arbitrage at all in the real meaning of the word arbitrage, in the sense that it was conducted against the will of one of the parties and without any attempt to involve it in the proceedings. One more telling fact is the fact that in September this year, Russia participated in joint naval maneuvers with China in the South China Sea. So how we summarize all that and bring it to some kind of vision? I agree with you that Russia has not displayed any activism here. And I think that that position was largely dictated by the fact that the whole issue is already exploited by external forces. And these forces are, apart from South China Sea, not on the best terms. So my question is very simple. If, in the present condition of our relations with the United States, we add a Russian element to the whole dispute, will it be leading to the solution, or will it just make it still more complicated? My impression is that the result may be the last one. And from that point of view, it goes against, the normal medical prescription. Do not make matters worse. That's one thing. The other thing is that if we are realistically looking at the diplomatic setup in which all these things are happening, in some ways, this is a dispute between the two countries with which we have a special relationship, between China and Vietnam. So here we have indicated many times that we are not taking sides. I think that if we apply the same principle to the Philippines, we have to say the same thing. Finally, there was a lot of speculation about Russia's participation in this maneuver as an indication that Russia is becoming a minor partner to China, and it is willing to play its part in this dispute in a way that will please China, and so on and so forth. Let me offer you another interpretation. The problem is that the United States in South China Sea is not simply supporting international arbitrage or just preaching freedom of navigation. It is trying to actively promote it by conducting intelligence activities in the external economic zone of a particular country. It is promoting in much the same way the principle of freedom of navigation in the Baltic and in the Black Sea. And of course, Russia has no other way but to react to these things. And I think you can interpret the situation approximately like this. Okay, if you want to tease us in the Baltics and in the Black Sea, then you please remember that we're a global power, and we can tease you elsewhere, and we can create you problems elsewhere. The whole thing is that, this is no longer a matter of relations between those who are directly involved in the dispute. It is a question of, in a very general sense, of US-China relationship. And whatever happens between US-China is immediately reflected in the South China Sea. And the Chinese are sometimes taking the position which is interpreted as intransigent by others, precisely because Americans are pressing so hard. And precisely because until recently I think it was just a fact of life, so let's be open about it. When they talked about the dispute between the Philippines and China, it was understood that behind the Philippines someone else is standing. That was what irritated China most, and this is why I think China was always taking the stand of the necessity of going into bilateral talks with all the participants in this dispute. I regret that there are new indications of the fact that this remains unsolved, to which you referred. But now that the process of going independently into bilateral talks with China, or discussions, let's call them discussions so far, has finally started, let's give it a chance. And when I say let's, maybe it sounds too emphatically. let us hope that it will be given a chance and that it will not be derailed before it reaches some palpable results. I do not think anybody in this room entertains whether they are standing on one side or the other, entertains the illusion that it can be done quickly, and quickly to everybody's satisfaction. It will take more time and more patience, and if from that standpoint, from generating the spirit of patience and mutual tolerance Russia can contribute, I think it will.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time and we must now end. To give our closing remarks, may I call on the Deputy Director of the UP Office of International Linkages and Associate Professor of Chemistry, Dr. Aaron Joseph Villarasa.